It's my privilege to present before you the post-budget analysis as we normally do. This time around we are making this particular experience more profound for you by putting across a direct video recording along with the presentations that we have given to you. If you ask me, this budget has been relatively more of a simple exercise. In last so many years in which we have seen the budgets of the government, the budget has been always, I think, very complicated affair, and this time around I think this budget has been more of a very simple exercise. Why I call it simple? It's more structural in nature. It is simple to understand. It has got a good amount of transparency already built into it. As I see it, and when we communicated to you in a pre-budget analysis, we had actually, I think, referred to three main premises on which the government could possibly draw the budget, and we could probably draw a framework based on these three premises for this budget. I am very glad to say that this framework is found validated with the budget which the government has presented, the finance minister has presented, and in a while I am going to reveal this framework to you. They had typically three alternatives or three premises on which they developed this entire budget. A growth revival. Revival of growth by way of systematically focusing on development of the infrastructure in the country, giving larger amount of thrust onto the agricultural sector, and giving equally good amount of thrust to the social infrastructure. On the other side, the premises were the government had to take the fiscal consolidation into account. The kind of fiscal deficit that the country is having year after year, which suggests that I think the country has been living far beyond its means. For every rupee of collection that the government is having, about a third of that money is going towards interest repayment for the borrowing that the government has continued to enjoy for last so many years. At the same time, about a fourth of money is going towards payment of subsidy bills of the government for running various schemes under which the subsidies are given, be it in the area of petrol products, be it in the area of fertilizers, or be it in the area of some of the social schemes like Narega and food security bills. And this had to be corrected, for which the government had to take care of the fiscal consolidation aspects. Third area of the premises on which this budget has come up is revival of growth in the economy and boosting of savings and consumptions. Boosting of savings and consumptions have happened largely in this budget, and the provision has come into the income tax. When I look at each of the areas within these three main premises, one, growth revival, second, fiscal consolidation, and the third is the boosting of consumptions and savings. In each of these three areas, various measures have been taken by the finance minister. When I touch upon, I think, some of these issues in my presentation, and if you can go through the presentation simultaneously while I am talking, you would find that in the area of growth revival, important asset classes have been considered for giving thrust, and they have given thrust on spending, the expenditure, and that too through public-private partnerships, which has a long implication going forward as far as the country is concerned, and I will be dealing with the subject in a while from now. Railways, roadways, waterways, power. These are the four infrastructure asset classes, along with port, The government has given larger amount of thrust on each of these four or five infrastructure asset class for the growth in the economy. In the railway budget, they have specifically, I think, announced various schemes pertaining to public-private partnership in boosting the railway-related activities in the country. Probably one of the most profound way of presenting the railway budget is to give privatization a scope to take the railway to the next level. Connecting all the ports in the country through Sagarmala project, the railway budget also provided about 40,000 crores worth of spending to connect port with railways and the roads. In the union budget, they have talked about development of roads, they have talked about kickstarting the mining activities, and they have talked about kickstarting the power projects. Each of these areas would mean a sizable amount of investment coming up in the economy. With this investment which is being planned by the government, my reading says the amount of money which would come into the system would be huge. We are not right now quantifying this particular amount more because as we see the progress in the economy during the course of this year, we are likely to see some of the large projects taking birth in the economy. And from where the money would come from? The money would come from investors this time around. So it would have a less amount of stress on the borrowings, it would have a less amount of stress on the finances of the government. And that brings me to the next point of fiscal consolidation. In fiscal consolidation, they have very clearly laid down the roadmap to bring down the fiscal deficit to 3% from current 4.7%. 3% of fiscal deficit would mean that the government has factored into account few things. First, higher amount of tax collection. Second, restricting the borrowing program. Third, divestment related receipts in the economy. And fourth, a large part of money would come through the individual investors, which means that the borrowings will come down in the economy, and that would keep the cost of government under control. Now, if these are the few measures which we can count on, to my mind, the fiscal deficit situation would be quite strong for the economy in general, and it would mean that the banks would have a significant amount of breathing space because the stress on the borrowed funds would be very less in the economy. That means that these funds could be actually utilized towards lending towards the projects. The third important premises on which this budget has been built and they have provided for is leaving about 21,000 crores of rupees in the hands of individuals by way of giving income tax exemptions to all class of people to the tune of about 50,000 rupees. The exemption limit has been increased by about 50,000 rupees. If we consider 4.2 crore taxpayers, income taxpayers, and at the lowest level of 10% on 50,000, the savings in the hands of individual would be about 5,000. Not counting into account ETC benefits and not counting into account the benefits coming out of the housing loan exemptions, I would calculate that this sum of money is 21,000 crores of rupees. Such a large sum of money living in the hands of individual would find its ways into investments in the economy, savings and investment into the economy, and consumptions in the economy, which would once again create a big size opportunity. So these are the three key premises on which this entire budgetary proposal and announcements have come, which suggest that the reforms are likely to be more stronger than before, more structural than before. Which are those 5 reforms which the government has basically given in this budget, and which makes me confident that going forward the economy would come on a very strong path for growth. We are talking about few reforms. I'm not going to read through many of them, but I think 4 or 5 key reforms that they have ended up taking decisions on. That includes, first and foremost, give a tax pass-through benefit to REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, and Industrial Investment Trust. Without getting into the specifics about the taxation, I would say that both these vehicles, investment in commercial real estate through REIT and investments in industrial infrastructure through IITs, to my mind, would result into a large sum of money or huge sum of money coming into the economy by way of FDI, by way of portfolio investments. If this is the amount of money which we are talking about, and I can count on numbers, but I have kept it, I think, for you to read through in my slide presentation, those numbers. If the amount of money of this magnitude is being planned for, we believe that somewhere the government would end up attracting a large sum of somewhere around 70,000 crores to 90,000 crores of rupees only in REIT, which means that the commercial real estate space, which at this point of time is struggling, could get a new lease of life through huge sum of money coming from the investors in REIT. It has a dual impact. One, it would basically keep the health of commercial real estate companies in proper shape. Two, with the availability of REITs and availability of the premises would become far more easier. That would make business operation would be much easily conducted or done. Similar way, we don't have the figures, but I think Industrial Investment Trust would be another new vehicle which will come up, and that could also attract large sum of money. Both of them put together holds the potential to bring in an economy in a given year a sum of money close to about 1 lakh of crores of rupees. With this kind of money coming into economy, it would have a positive impact on the availability of foreign reserves in the country, which could obviously go up. And at the same time, the stress on the bank borrowing will come down. Bank will feel more secure rather to give money towards infrastructure developments because the investors are also bringing a large sum of money. Second area of reform that I call it, which is structural, is attracting investment in defense and insurance. Increasing the limit from 26% of foreign investment to 49%. They have signaled a large sum of money once again coming into these two sectors very systematically. To take one example, insurance sector alone would attract somewhere around 25,000 crores of rupees for investment based on this particular norm of increasing the FDI from 26% to 49%. Similar kind of a amount could come even in defense sector. In fact, I think amount coming into defense sector through FDI once again has dual benefit. One, on one side, inflow of money would come into the economy, and on the other side, the dependence on the forex spending would come down, which means a healthier situation going forward for managing the current account deficits. The third area of reform, as I see it, where the government has taken very systematic role, is in the area of banking and financial sector. Making a path clear for consolidation of bank. It is suggested that the banks would probably get much more stronger than what they are right now. Through which vehicle it will happen, when it will happen, I think it would be validated in the course of this year. However, we believe, assuming that the number of public sector banks which are currently operating in the country if they are brought down into four main banks in the economy, one each catering to different region, east, west, north, south, assuming that State Bank of India would have its own cluster of banks under it, Bank of India would have another structure under them, PNB could have a third set of structure of banks under them, and any of the southern bank could have the banks operating into the southern area. So if these four different banks are getting created under the consolidation process, in such situation it will take care of two aspects. One, the size would matter, which means that they would have much better flexibility to lend money to the customer who comes into the economy, the borrower who comes into the economy to implement large size projects, which means that the larger bank would facilitate a larger amount of lending, and it in turn could help expand the economy faster because the availability of fund would be of large size. The second most important benefit that you get out of it is that through this particular consolidation process, the government would be in a much better position to pay for the capital adequacy ratio requirement that these banks would assume under the Basel III norms. 2,40,000 crores worth of additional capital would be required for capitalizing PSU banks when Basel III is being implemented by 2017-18 period. Consolidation of banks would help bring this money through the banks themselves to a greater extent. So we believe this is a very strong measure that they have taken, and a path has been cleared. Of course, it would have a larger impact, which I am going to talk it out in a while, in the other area of activity which is not directly seen by investors as far as I think the budgetary proposal is concerned. But before that, let me take up the fourth most important reform measure that they have taken, and that is in the area of privatizing the PSU banks. As they say, 2,40,000 crores of rupees are required to fund banks for Basel III requirements for capital adequacy ratio strengthening. The government has basically given this particular path a good clarity by allowing the private investors to invest into the government owned banks. Up till now, private investors have invested in government owned banks by government diluting their stake through offer for sale. Out here, the measure announced suggests that they would be diluting their stake by way of infusing the fresh capital or inviting the fresh capital from private investors, and in turn their stake will come down to 51%. To my mind, it will serve two purposes once again. One, capital will flow into the companies, individual companies, under the structured environment which I was just talking about. And two, it would do away with the need for government infusing more capital, which means less stress on the government finances. To my mind, I think once again this is a very strong measure, as one could count, for investing into the PSU banks. A large sum of money has been proposed to be spent in the area of agriculture, social infrastructure and rural infrastructure. This is once again a very strong measure that the government has taken. In fact, I think one of the better approach that one could think of, this budget for the first time has given larger amount of allocation of resources in the hands of states. What it would mean? It would mean that some of the projects which are not getting implemented now would find its implementation easily because of the amount of money given to the state for implementation of some of the social infrastructure, rural infrastructure and agricultural projects. This kind of money going in the hands of individuals in the rural area could transform economy big time in coming future. To my mind, this is an amount of money which is available in the hands of individual masses who operates out of rural India, and that could bring up the purchasing power in the economy. Recall the third premises which I talked about earlier, in which I said that the consumption-led boom would take place in this economy, and this is what is exactly being talked about under this measure. So to sum it up, three strong premises, five strong reform measures. They have a huge potential to drive the market very positively and provide a two very profound outcome, or two very significant outcomes out of these measures that they have taken. What are those two major outcomes? And please listen me out a little carefully on this aspect. First and foremost, the important most outcome would be the amount of money available through investors directly into the system could be as high as 60 billion US dollars in a given year for investment. And if this money has been brought in by the investors, in such situation, the government's borrowing will come down. When their borrowing comes down, the stress on the bank's fund would be less. And because the funds available with the bank would remain on a higher side, it would actually help expand credit growth in the economy far more than what it is right now. Currently, credit growth in the economy has remained sub 15%, close to 13%. With this availability of money in the hands of individuals, in the hands of banks, the credit growth could actually march past 20% rate of growth. A very, very powerful measure that one can talk about as an outcome of these reform measures that they have talked in the budget, which means that the bank would be in a much better position to lend credits. They would be in a much better position to lend credit at a cost which is lower because the stress is coming down. If the cost of funds remain lower, on one side it will help banks to get out of the clutches of the non-performing assets faster, and on the other side the projects would get cheaper rate of funds eventually, which will make the revival much faster, much better for many of the projects. So with this kind of moves, they have actually benefited banks far more than probably I think one has even imagined about. And this is, as I said in the beginning of my talk, this is more of a structural reform. This is not the reform which is going to tell you the numbers immediately, but once they start rolling out these particular measures, the process for policies, it could possibly result into larger amount of benefits into the banking system. My declaration here is that the bank's rates will come down very significantly over next 3 to 5 years. In fact, I think the process has already begun. I wouldn't be surprised if we see at least 0.5% rate cut by the end of this financial year. And going forward, the rate could cut even further. So this is a very strong signal. And remember one thing, when the rate of interest cuts, the public sector banks gets maximum benefited because of two reasons. One, their yield portfolio will look up. According to our estimates and calculations, most of the public sector banks would have a positive impact on the bottom line between 5% to 15% with this rate cut coming up of 0.5%, which means that the bottom line of public sector bank in the current financial year should go up because of the better management of the yield portfolio under the rate cut possibilities. That's the first thing that I would like to put across. Second most important aspect which I would say is the non-performing assets of the banks would eventually come down, because once the lower rate of funds are available in the system, it goes towards completion of the pending infrastructure projects. It would kickstart repayment of the loan taken by these infrastructure companies, and in turn bank would be in a position to start accounting for the credits towards the non-performing assets that they have already booked in the books in the earlier period, which means again the balance sheet of the bank will become stronger because the bottom line of the companies would start showing better performance. And of course it will add to the credit expansion in the economy through the banks. So very strong measure from banks. In fact, according to me, it is a direct benefit to the bank through these measures. And at times I am surprised as to how market reacted after the budget on the banks. To my mind, I think this correction in the banking stock is probably an invitation for investors to come into the market and buy some of the quality banking stocks for multiple times return that one could expect out of them over a little longer period of time, above 3 years and above. The second most important outcome of these measures that the government has announced is in the area of foreign exchange. I would think the amount of money which would come into the economy due to inviting money through IITs and REITs, inviting money in the economy through the particular process of increasing the FDI in insurance and defense, inviting money into various infrastructure projects through the measures that we have talked about, it could have only one positive impact, which is the currency inflow would increase in India, and that could possibly lead to stronger rupee than before. Currently, rupee stays at 60 levels to a dollar. Many a times I have heard people saying that depreciated currency is good for the economy for exports. I have a typical argument which I have put across that if export has to increase, then why depreciate the currency? Why can't export increase by way of creating better infrastructure and improving the supply side situation in the economy? To my mind, I think with these infrastructure projects that the government has talked about, the supply side situation is only going to improve from here on, and that would probably reduce a larger amount of inefficiency in the economy. Now, that being so, I would think that the currency inflow, the dollar inflow in the economy would be more profound than before. Rupee will appreciate, and why not it should appreciate? If appreciated rupee can benefit the economy by way of lower import bill, and lower import bill could help manage better current account deficits, lower import bill could help manage better deficit situation coming up from the subsidies in the fiscal deficits account, I think appreciated rupee would be far more better and preferred if we can export through the efficiency-led measures vis-a-vis depreciation of rupee. Very strong measure. I expect rupee to operate strong. Maybe over next 12 to 15 months time, rupee could move towards 54-55 levels. And 2 to 3 years or 4 years down the line, with the fiscal deficit staying at 3% to GDP, to my mind, rupee holds all the potential to come back to 45 and 50 levels in 3 to 4 years time from now. To my mind, I think this is going to be very, very positive for also a reason that a depreciated rupee is actually, I think, a hindrance for growth in the economy. Imagine you working for 8 hours and earn your wages in rupee. Somebody in the Western world working for 8 hours and earn their wages in dollar and other currencies. You work 60 times more to earn the same dollar, whereas the person running or working for earning dollars work exactly, I think, 60 times less compared to what you work for. Prosperity is going to be higher, and if we want to get the prosperity, probably we'll have to work towards strengthening our currency sooner than later. That would be, I think, a scenario wherein I think our growth would be faster and better, and we'll have more amount of money in our hands at the same time. So that these two outcomes, one on the banking side, which promises to bring down the rate of interest and improving the health of the balance sheets of the banking companies, and one on the currency side, which is promising to bring the appreciation in the economy, could itself, I think, correct the damaged financials of the economy far beyond what all we have calculated and thought about. So 3 key premises, 5 strong measures, and 2 profound outcomes is the summation of this budget, and that's why I call it a simple and reform oriented budget. How it will help us in capital market? Let's talk about it, I think, for a few minutes. We hear in the media commentary people saying that our markets are fairly valued, they are a bit expensive. I would say it's not. Currently, on a forward earning estimate basis, the Sensex PE is 14.5. Historical average of Sensex PE is 16.5. So this argument suggests that there is a headroom available of at least 15 to 20% from current level for Sensex to go up. First point. Second point, in case of listed companies, if you look at it, Indian listed companies are sitting on a cash of close to 5 lakh crores. This is excluding banks. If the companies are sitting on a cash of about 5 lakh crores, and if the amount of money comes into investment market over a period of time, according to me, I think the growth of the company's earnings would be much faster than before. Against 1425 EPS of FY14, we believe that EPS could jump up to 1850 levels going forward in FY16-17. Is a very strong growth that can be seen. Even I think a faster growth could be seen given the kind of measures that we are talking about. So market is not expensive given the growth that we are seeing from the Sensex companies itself. Third point, individual companies within the Sensex basket or within the mid-cap baskets in the market, they are offering good amount of potential. Company like Reliance is offering a potential to double the size of the net profit in next 2 to 3 years time from current levels. Reliance carrying such a huge weight into the market, and if they are talking of doubling the size of the profit in 3 years time, how can market come down beyond a point? Similar could be situation when they would start talking about the phasing out of the subsidies with ONGC. Size of ONGC itself could have 14-15% weight in the market, and phasing out of subsidy, allowing ONGC to deploy money more towards its core organic business, once again I think suggests that we are likely to see a faster growth in earning for Sensex companies going forward. There are two companies which I have talked about in oil and gas segment. I feel that I think interesting companies they are. One could look at investing into these companies. Similarly, the other theme is agricultural theme. I believe likes of Jain Irrigation, UPL, Advanta, EID Parry. These are companies which are in different businesses within the agricultural space, are largely benefited because of some of the measures that the government has taken in the rural economy particularly. And into agri segment itself, because in agriculture they have also talked about some of the nice reforms of extending the agri credit of about 8 lakh crores and at the same time giving incentive to farmers who pay up in early times or who pay up in time. So it's going to be, I think, a very strong direction for agricultural companies going forward. Other companies which are catering to the agri segment, they are going to have a very strong growth going forward. The third theme here would be consumption. And within consumption, we include, apart from FMCG companies, largely automobile companies, likes of Maruti, likes of Tata Motors, likes of Bajaj Auto. They are looking far more convincing, we are far more convinced to invest into these companies given the growth projection that they could assume in coming times. Most importantly, within the cyclical segment, some of the metal companies could outperform the market very significantly. Within that, we like companies like Tisco, Sesa Sterlite, Hindustan Zinc and Hindalco. Hindustan Zinc and Sesa Sterlite, both of them remain very favorable. Because of the possibility of Hindustan Zinc, government stake buy would take place in this financial year, which could possibly bring the valuation up for Hindustan Zinc to close to 190-200 levels. And for Sesa Sterlite too, I think it would be a very positive move, more because of if Hindustan Zinc is bought over by them, they would avail straight away the cash that Hindustan Zinc is having in books of about 25,000 crores, which would ultimately help them manage their debt at the Sisa Sterlite level itself. Leave aside the possibility of Orissa government giving them the bauxite mines. That possibility still remains, and if that being so, then I think this company remains extremely positive for the growth that it provides or the potential that it holds. Banking stocks I have talked about earlier. We like many of the PSU banks, and it may be a good time to accumulate some of the good quality PSU banks. In particular, we like State Bank. In particular, we like BOI, Bank of Baroda, and PNB. Large size banks holds the potential for larger growth, could be invested into the portfolio. Likewise, there are many companies into infrastructure segments. There are many companies in the mid-cap segment. We like those companies for investment portfolio. And obviously, I think my budget talk is not to give you the investment tips, but the whole idea is to make you convinced that if you adopt an approach to invest into the markets post budget, buy into selective things. And if you have bought into selective things, then probably the large opportunity that you are buying at this point of time is huge, because these companies could give multiple times appreciation when you hold it for longer period of time. They hold that potential. Friends, you will recall my 8-year cycle study which I have shared with you in past. We believe that we are typically into the second leg of 8-year cycle for the period 2008 to 2016. In this second leg of 8-year cycle, we are expecting market to produce superlative returns for investors. I am not in the business of projecting index. Neither am I asking people to get into momentum trading. And what I am trying to say is that these are some of the budget related provisions and the measures that the government has taken, for which the outcome is expected to be extremely positive. It reminds me of the reform process of 90s, which the then government had started. Indian economy opened up big time in 90s, and thereafter we have seen the fruits of that reform and the benefits thereafter. Of course, we have drifted in between with inconsistent political policies. However, with this government assuming power in the parliament, majority in the parliament, I would think that going forward, governance would be much better played than what we have seen in the past. And because of that, I believe that the market probably holds potential to give good sum of return for investors who are investing for the long term. So the recommendation is, stay away from the temptation of investing for short term. However, invest into the long term and use the benefit if the market gives you, if at all it builds momentum in between, to book part of your profits with the kind of investment that you have done in good quality stocks. We are always here to help you out with it. Our job is to put across the possibilities that we see in this market. Very glad to say that in last so many years of our budget evaluation exercise, we have successfully picked up the right trends. And this time too, believe that I think the trend we have picked up is going to be following, and it gets validated over a period of time. With these few words, I would like to conclude my talk and would like to invite your attention to the presentation that we have sent to you, where you will probably see a large part of the text along with the facts, which will also help you to recall some of the things which I have talked about in this presentation speech today. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me, and do share your feedbacks to us. We are always available to address your queries. We are always available to help you out structuring your investments. We have got value-added services in form of portfolio advisory services and portfolio management services for equity investors, along with other investors who are investing other in personal assets or personal investment products. Do come up with your requirements. Let us share more and more, and let us create a very strong and solid and brilliant future in which we all have already entered into. Thank you very much once again. Goodbye.